It's Wulf, and I wanted to talk about Infamous. Infamous is a series of superhero games, or supervillain, you can choose what you play as, developed by Sucker Punch Productions exclusively for PlayStation consoles. Hopefully someday they'll get a remaster that will make them more accessible on PC and other consoles. But anyway, the thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is how all of the Infamous games, alongside just being good games, did really cool, interesting things that were either unique to the Infamous franchise specifically, or were interesting experiments just in the world of gaming. I recorded a bunch of gameplay with commentary over top of it, talking about all of these individual things, and it's been a couple months since I actually recorded that stuff, but if I remember right, I said really everything I wanted to say in those gameplay clips, so I really don't have a lot to talk about in this intro, but just as a little teaser for some of the things that I talk about in this video, I talk about Infamous 2's UGC, Infamous Festival of Blood being an interesting download game, Infamous Second Son's ARG, so I think that's pretty much it for everything I needed to say in the intro. So if I have anything that I didn't say in the gameplay, I'll be sure to cut in with a voiceover, but hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and I will probably make a conclusion at some point to this video also. So anyway, here's my gameplay and talking about interesting stuff in Infamous. So for Infamous 1, we're starting out in the PlayStation Store because what I want to show about Infamous 1 is the Gigawatt Blade's power. Interestingly, Infamous 1 doesn't actually seem to show up when I type in Infamous, but the Gigawatt Blade's power does on its own. So the Gigawatt Blade's power. This is pretty simple. It's a really small DLC. It just adds a melee ability for Cole in the first game. It lets him use these like electricity blades on his hands. It's a really small download also. It's only 100 kilobytes. And that kind of makes me wonder, and it downloads super fast as you guys are about to see. It kind of makes me wonder if this might actually have already been in the game, but this is like an unlock key for it, because that was kind of common on PlayStation 3 for stuff to be like fully installed either on the disc or in like a demo if you download the demo, and then there would be like a key to actually unlock it though. But that's downloaded, so I'm going to hop into the game now and show you guys what it does and talk about it some more, assuming I am far enough in the story to actually show that. I don't know how far in the story I have to be, but we'll find out. I'll be back. So I've loaded into the first game, and here we are in Cole and Zeke's hideout in Empire City, and we need to go to the Powers menu, and all the way over on the right, now we have Gigawatt Blades, and you have to pay 600 XP to unlock them. And when you do, you hit right on the D-pad to use them, and now Cole has his electricity blades on his hands. So I suppose I'll go try to find some enemies to fight, and then I'll talk a little bit more about why I think that this piece of DLC is sort of interesting. Alright, here we are. Here's some Reapers that we can get into a fight with. So this DLC came out pretty early on. This game came out in 2009, and I believe that the DLC came out around the same time. I kind of think it might have actually been used as like an experiment by Sucker Punch to sort of see how the DLC process like works. Because this was the only piece of DLC they released for Infamous, and it's really like a straightforward thing. But Infamous 2 had a lot more DLC on it. So I think this is kind of interesting because this was actually the first and only piece of DLC released for Infamous 1, but Infamous 2 actually had a lot more DLC. And so I kind of wonder if this might have been like an experiment for Sucker Punch, if I could manage to hit an enemy. Might have been an experiment for Sucker Punch to maybe see like how the PlayStation Store's DLC stuff worked. This game came out in 2009, so there had been other games that like had DLC at this point and downloadable games and stuff like that. But this was early on enough in like the PlayStation 3 life cycle that the case for it actually doesn't mention DLC on it at all, which is interesting because later games that came out later on PlayStation 3 had a little PlayStation Network tab up at the top, and on the back they would show you like how they use the PlayStation Network. And this game doesn't have one, but like Infamous 2, for example, has one, and it says that DLC is one of the things that it's used for. But that's pretty much it for the original Infamous, honestly. There's not a ton going on here, but I just think it's an interesting little aside, especially because this was a relatively early example of a piece of DLC on the PlayStation Store. Not like a super early one, but just kind of interesting, especially because it's the only one. And I wanted to mention too, the fact that this is only a 100 kilobyte download, that makes me wonder if possibly this was already on the disc and they used an unlock code for it, like I was saying when I was actually on the PlayStation Store a minute ago, which I think is sort of interesting when you think about like video games in general now compared to video games from even like, how many years ago was that? Like 7 years ago by now? Because there was a long time where like DLC would be on the disc and then you would have to download, like you would have to pay to get a key to unlock it or whatever, and people thought that was annoying because like, oh, if it's already on the disc then I should be able to use it. Whereas now it almost feels like the opposite issue, where you get a disc for a game and then you still end up having to download like the entire game anyway, and the disc itself doesn't really even work without the internet sometimes. But anyway, time to move on to Infamous 2. So here we are in Infamous 2, and before I get too deep into talking about Infamous 2, I just want to mention something that I forgot to mention in the Infamous 1 part of this video, but it applies to almost every Infamous game. The Karma system, as you can see up in the top left of the screen, that was introduced in Infamous 1, and it's in Infamous 1, 2, and Second Son. It's not in Festival of Blood or First Light, though, but pretty much it allows the game to track whether or not you're being good or evil as Cole, and it's not really that nuanced, to be honest. It's pretty much like a, do you kill enemies that are incapacitated, or do you restrain enemies that are incapacitated? Do you help people that are on the street? Do you attack civilians? Stuff like that. It's not like super deep, but it is an interesting gameplay mechanic and does sort of change the story a little bit depending on how you play. But anyway, the main thing that I wanted to talk about in Infamous 2 is that this game has user-generated content. So that is the green icons on the map here. They are unlocked pretty early in the game, and it's after the first like karma-based mission, and they are missions that are created by other players, and you too can make missions. It actually has a relatively in-depth creation system for missions, but not everything is there. But man, when I started replaying Infamous 2 for this video a little bit, it reminded me how much time I used to spend playing the UGC missions in this game. I spent hours and hours after I finished the game just playing through UGC stuff. And so I'm going to check out one of those and then show you guys a little bit of the like actual creation mechanism for it, but it's actually a lot more in depth than you might expect. Also, I'm going to pop up on the screen right now. I wasn't recording when this happened, but when you unlock UGC and you're online, you get a set of messages from Sucker Punch about like stuff that had been updated in UGC. So as the game, like as time went on, they must have updated more stuff and added stuff to UGC, which I think is interesting. So I'm going to pop those. I just took the pictures of the TV screen on my phone. I'm going to pop those up on screen and give you guys like a few seconds to pause and read them if you want. But let's go for, what's this, Trellnom the Igniturator mission. If I remember right, the ones that are actually on the map are ones that were really, really highly voted, or that Sucker Punch themselves maybe picked out. But I'll head over there and we'll start this one, and then I'll show you guys some of the other UGC features. This is probably going to be one of the things that I spend more time talking about in this video, just because this was really interesting. Infamous is a completely solo game, and it's cool to see this asynchronous like online option in this game, and the fact that this is still online all these years later. Especially because, you know, there's been 2 whole console generations that have come out since PlayStation 3, and 3 other Infamous games that have come out since this game, and yet the UGC is still online as ever, and people still do seem to be making new missions for it. So here we are, Trellnom the Igniterator, and an unexpected network error occurred. Dang it, I had heard that this happens sometimes with the UGC in Infamous 2, that it will go down for like a few hours every now and again. Apparently this one was actually made by Sucker Punch though, which is interesting. I don't know why it's giving that error when it does still seem to be loading some stuff, but let me try to see if I can pull up another mission here. But while we're waiting on that to go back online, I can show you guys some of the other stuff. So you can filter different missions out, and I guess this is show, yeah, like what is featured on the map here. So newest, recently played, all that stuff. You know, let's look at the newest missions and see if anything changes on the map. But it might not, given that there was that network error. Yeah, I don't think so. So let's go ahead and check out some of the other features though while we're waiting. I might have to come back to this part. But you have my missions. Now, I do believe that Sucker Punch at times must have reset all the missions or removed missions or something, even if they weren't like banned or something, because I know when I was younger, there was a couple missions that I made. I know one time in particular I'd found like some scaffolding somewhere on the map and made sort of a townhouse out of it and put that in as a mission, but there's nothing in here. It also could be something to do with the PlayStation username change thing, because that wasn't implemented yet, and then a couple years ago you could change your PlayStation name, and that can mess with older games sometimes. Now, UGC does work fine even if you changed your name, because I just tested this the other day and it worked fine. I think it's a separate thing that network error is having. But yeah, and then let's see if we can search right now. So something I was saying about people making new missions, I searched for 2025 the other day, because that's the current year, just to see what would pop up. And yeah, so stuff pops up. This is one I found the other day by Mr. Licenciado. Feliz 2025, ya está aquí. You know, happy 2025, and then like 2025 is here, and this is loading, so it might just have been that one mission that was acting weird. But so there was a lot of different missions. There was stuff like this that was just really simple little things like this. I think this is in Spanish, and I know some Spanish, but not that much. But when I played this the other day, if I remember right, the subtitles are pretty much just saying like have a nice New Year and check out my other mission. And then you can see in front of Cole there's 2025 and there's fireworks going off. So there's simpler stuff like this that's kind of like, you know, almost community building in a way. And then there was a thing, follow-up missions, where if you made a mission you could choose to follow it up. You can make like a storyline, but in this case we're getting an error because I haven't progressed that far in the normal story of Infamous 2, so the follow-up mission probably takes place in an area that I haven't actually unlocked yet. But let me see, let me search for something else that will maybe pop up something newer. I'm going to search for fight and then see if we can maybe just get into like a random battle mission. So some of these, like the gang war, destroy, kill them all, you can see how there's a handful of missions here that all have the same name. That's because there was like templates that you could use, and these people probably just used templates and didn't really like change anything. But let me see if I can find one that we can do. Swamp versus ice, maybe? I think this is probably just like a big battle between the swamp enemies and the ice enemies. I can't really remember the names because, like I said, it's been a while since I played this. But, yeah, so, as you can see, there's one of those... Oh, yeah, okay, so see some of these are the bigger enemies from later in the game, and these two are fighting it out. And that was another thing, if I remember right, in the mission creator you could actually like choose to have enemies like be on your side, or have different characters want to fight you that normally wouldn't want to fight you, stuff like that. So that was always kind of interesting. Not really a lot going on here though, so I'll go ahead and abandon this mission. Let me go ahead and see if I can try to find one other mission that maybe has a little bit more going on. Let's search for everybody's favorite side character in Infamous, Zeke. There's tons of missions about Zeke. Medical defense. Here we go. Defend the ambulances by Zeke Bob. I think that's why it was by, like, Zeke was in the person's name. Defeat the militia. Right, okay. So this is a pretty normal mission that you would like, the kind of thing that you would
it's bet to see with the user-generated content. So in this case, we have to defend the ambulances, or wherever they are, down there, and defeat these militia guys. And this one's a pretty good one for early in the game, too, because I don't have very many abilities unlocked yet. But some of the missions, that can be one of the issues sometimes with the UGC, is that, like, if your coal isn't really that much powered up yet, you know, you can get defeated really quickly, like I just did there. And you might not necessarily have, like, a ton of abilities to use to fight enemies and stuff. But it is cool. This is a really interesting thing, and in a lot of ways, I kind of don't understand why they added it, though, because, like, this game is very single-player, as was Infamous 1, and so is Second Son. I always was curious if someday they might add a multiplayer mode to an Infamous game, but they never actually ended up doing so. So, yeah, I don't know, but it is cool. It's really interesting. It's cool that it's still online after all these years, and there's really not that many games out there, especially on console, that have user-generated content. I mean, I know Far Cry is another pretty popular example. There's the map creator that a lot of Far Cry games have, although not all of them. Little Big Planet also, and Little Big Planet actually came out around the same time as Infamous. That was also mostly a PS3 series. So, yeah, just interesting stuff to consider, and that's sort of what this video is all about. And before we move on to Infamous Festival of Blood, I just want to show you guys the mission creation tools a little bit. I'm not going to do anything too crazy or complicated here, but yeah, this is how it works. So this is where Cole would spawn in, and this is also where the mission start location would be, and then this is how you can, like, make the mission be successful. So when unspecified happens, it kind of has a little bit of, like, coding stuff. Yeah, it's really pretty complicated in a lot of ways. So you can make objects, though. You can drop characters and stuff like that. So, like, here we have there's cars and stuff. And it's not the most intuitive thing necessarily, but I remember you could do a lot. Like, there were some really fascinating missions that were made here. So what's the spin button? Can do that. Can make it half in the ground and stuff. Put it up in the air, drop it back down on the ground. Oh, here's the logic stuff. So yeah, you could, like, tie these together. So yeah, so down in the bottom left, when all default group are incapacitated or defeated, like, another thing will happen. And if I remember right, you connect these together. So if I connected those together, this would be when all default group are incapacitated or defeated, the player successfully completes the mission. So default group is like a group of characters or enemies or whatever. So, like, if I put down a ton of enemies and then I assign them all to default group in this scenario, when Cole defeats all of those guys, then the mission would end. So, and you can do various different ways to do that. Like, you could have it when Cole reaches a certain point, then the mission will end. If you wanted to make, like, a obstacle course or something, yeah, it can get pretty complicated. And then there's the whole thing about the different like, packs, and yeah, there's tons of stuff. This gives you access to, like, dang near everything in the game. It is kind of funny, though, how some of these object packs, they literally just have, like, one thing in them. Kind of wonder why they put it together that way. And then, like, in core objects, there's some things that, like, there's vehicles in there, but then there's also a vehicle object pack. But there's a lot of stuff. And then, like, you could make characters move around and everything, and it really can get complicated. You can do a lot of cool stuff with this. Brief. So this is, like, where at the like, it's pretty much like subtitles, and so that was how you could do, like, story stuff, because obviously there wasn't any voice acting. There was also a cutscene maker, so you could pose characters and then use this to create, like, comic book panels. So anyway, that's pretty much it for Infamous 2. The main thing that I wanted to show here was this UGC creator, and just that, yeah, it's cool. It's you know, it's a console game, not only a console game, but a console exclusive game with a level creator that is still online all these years later, and also no other actual multiplayer aspects. So I am on the PlayStation Store again to show you guys the next game, which is Infamous Festival of Blood. This one, I think, is probably one of the most interesting things in this video, if not the most interesting thing in this video. There's a ton of experimental, unique stuff about Festival of Blood. I want to start on the store page, though, to show you guys this was a download-only game. This never was released on a disc, so far as I know, and even when they eventually made the Infamous Collection, which came with Infamous 1, 2, and Infamous Festival of Blood, they included a download code for it, so it wasn't on a disc still. There's other scenarios where sometimes download-only games eventually got released on a disc, like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, I know, for example. If you have some versions of the Far Cry collection, not sure if it's all of them, but some of them, you can actually download it right off the disc on some versions, so it kind of got a disc release. But anyway, I want to show you guys also the description here on the PlayStation Store. So, brand new single-player DLC for download via PSN, but then the last sentence, previous Infamous games are not needed to play this DLC. So, that's what I was saying about standalone DLC / spin-off game, although I guess technically it's standalone DLC. So, I'm going to load into the game, and I actually haven't played the game at all because there's something cool that I want to show you guys at the beginning of Infamous Festival of Blood, and then once we actually get into it a little bit, I'll show you guys some more about it. So I've jumped into Infamous Festival of Blood, and the first cutscene just played. Pretty much Zeke is like at a bar, and he's trying to impress this lady that walks in by saying, you know, he knows Cole, and there was the whole thing with Pyronite, and Cole became a vampire, etc., etc. The whole game is kind of a frame story, where it's told through Zeke telling this story to this lady at the bar, who I believe has a name in the character creator. I don't remember what it is, or not character creator, the UGC creator in this game, which is a thing I will talk about in a second, because this game also has UGC. But that's how the game works. Something interesting that I want to show, that I've said interesting so many times in this video, something fascinating that I wanted to show at the beginning of this video, or this section of the video, is that this game starts out with Cole having some of his normal powers, and canonically, seemingly, the karma meter is up in the top left, which you can't tell if Cole is good or bad really, but he's got blue electricity, so it appears, and he's got the group heal ability. So he seems to be at full good karma at this point, and Zeke even says something at one point about, which I don't have the subtitles turned on, hang on. Zeke says something about how, like, regardless of what people say, you know, Cole was a good guy. So canonically in this, Cole is good karma. Also, this is like the only time in the game where you get to use the amp, because eventually Cole gets like a wooden stake to use as well instead. So it's just cool that the beginning of this game starts like this, where Cole has all of his normal powers from the game, but you only get to use them for like a minute or two, because eventually it gives you the vampire powers and stuff. So I'm going to pause recording and skip ahead a little bit to the point where I actually have like the normal powers and stuff that this game gives you, and then I'm going to talk about some of that stuff a little bit more. And also I'll have to show UGC at some point too. I don't know how far you have to get into the game for that. Also, oh, one other thing. The karma system gets totally eliminated in this game. Even though it's here right now, it really doesn't like do anything, but it totally disappears once Cole turns into a vampire. So I've played for a little bit longer, finished like the first 2 missions in the game, and now I've got the online interactions, the online user agreement. So this pops up when you're about to unlock UGC, because since it involves the internet, of course, there's terms and conditions for it. Okay, so now that we have carefully read through the online user agreement, it is downloading new UGC functionality, and UGC is online. Interestingly, this one didn't have a bunch of notices pop up like Infamous 2 did, but that same thing happens in Infamous 2. When you unlock the UGC, is the terms and conditions pop up, and then you accept them, and you get to play UGC missions. So this game also has it. Alongside it being download only, this just has a really interesting theme to it, I think. This is honestly one of those games that I can pretty strongly say there's really nothing else like it, because not only is it a superhero game like Infamous 1 and 2, but it's also a vampire game, and like inversely, not only is it a vampire game, but it's a superhero game. There's not very many vampires out there who also can control electricity. Also, as I had mentioned, the karma system in this game has been completely eliminated. As you can see in the top left, instead of a karma meter, there is a blood meter. So that is how much blood that Cole has available to him to use. So when you bite people, or also when you stake vampires, you fill the blood meter up, and then also there's like these vials of like blood that you can collect to increase the amount overall of blood that you have available to you. Also, as you can see, Cole is kind of like vibrating right now. That means that there's a firstborn near him, so you can sneak up on them and stake them. Those are like the giant vampires. And in order to defeat any of the vampires, you need to stake them, but that's just like a stealth staking thing. But as I was saying, the blood meter, so that is primarily used for this, which is Cole's ability to turn into seemingly a swarm of bats and fly around. It's really cool because that was, oh, here's some of the vampires right there. So these are the main enemies of this game. They're, well, vampires. They work for Bloody Mary, who is a vampire that turned Cole into a vampire in the first place, that he is subsequently trying to defeat. Here is also one of these vials that you can collect that increases the blood capacity. Man, I've kind of hit everything all at once, which is really nice. But yeah, it's cool to see like the combination of Cole's electricity powers with his vampire powers. Also, since this is like a standalone DLC, it does the thing that's kind of common in these sorts of games, where Cole has both a limited amount of powers, but also like a bunch of his stuff is upgraded. So like, for example, with the hovering ability, this is like upgraded from the base hovering ability in Infamous 2 and stuff. But there's also only like one type of bolt that he can use, and there's no like power changing menu available or anything. So yeah, it's really cool. It's really interesting. I really like this game. Part of me almost wants to say that this is actually like my favorite Infamous game, possibly. I think it's tied with just normal Infamous 2. It's really interesting. It's a really cool game. I really enjoy it. And that is not the only thing to mention. So I want to talk about the UGC as well. So it looks like there's only one UGC mission popping up on the map. It's called Blood Conduits. That one's probably also made by Sucker Punch. But if we go... Oh, well, we might have to check out that one before we can check out the other ones, because it's not popping up, or UGC for this game may have been shut down, but it functioned. If so, it functioned almost identically to Infamous 2. But let's go check this one out and see, because that would be kind of odd. But so yes, made by Sucker Punch. Will it load? It seems to be loading. I think I found a big old nest of them soulless baby biting blood monkeys. No offense to you, of course. You're my favorite blood monkey. Nothing like the rest of them. It was my blood that brought Barry back to life. I thought vampires were a myth. Okay, I can't do the voices. I sound silly. Myth, like a guy who can shoot lightning and suck electricity from streetlights. Exactly, I think vampires are conduits, but instead of electricity, they drain blood for power. Great, you cracked the code. Doesn't make sucking the life out of people any less messed up. I know, but it's just... What, you getting tender on him now? Now a little conduit bonding going on? No, just show me where this nest's at. You got it, killer. Follow Zeke to the nest of vampires. So even though this UGC mission is made by Sucker Punch, it kind of just goes to exemplify what can be done with the UGC creator, not only in Festival of Blood, but in Infamous 2 also. They're in there, brother. Let's get them. Hang back. I got this. Investigate the vampire den. So also, while I'm doing this, it's worth mentioning, Cole loses some of his abilities as well because of the whole vampire thing. So like the whole thing with the karma meter being gone, Cole also cannot restrain enemies or bio-leech enemies or heal people anymore. Which makes sense because those were mostly like karma things anyway. So since there's no karma meter in this game, you know, it adds up that like it's not necessary, and it wouldn't really necessarily make Cole like, you know, that yeah. Oh, I can shadow stake now. It didn't quite work for that one. Let me see if I can get this. Nope. Okay, I keep getting attached to things. There we go. Yeah, the flying ability I think is really cool, and I almost wonder if they were using it as a test possibly to add to like the next Infamous game. But of course, Infamous Second Son does not have flying. Look. Oh, there's one of the firstborns. Oh, and he's about to eat Zeke. I'm supposed to be following these arrows or if they're just part of the game. Also, alongside Cole... Oh, yeah, I was supposed to do that. Okay. Alongside Cole losing some of his abilities, the map in this game is also a lot smaller than in normal Infamous 2. It's only the first island. That being said, I don't know if like there might be glitches or something to get to the other islands, but I imagine they're probably mostly empty. But yeah, I just figured that was important to note as well. You know, playing through Infamous 1 and 2 and, well, all of the Infamous games a little bit for this video has made me realize that it really could be fun at some point to replay through Infamous 1 and 2 and Festival of Blood. Second Son and First Light, I'm not really too sure about, because, like, I mean, I like them, but I don't really feel like playing them again, but 1 and 2 especially with the UGC stuff, I really should probably play through again. Shoot the lock, man, get me out of here. Let me release these people also while I'm at it. Thanks, man. Heard them talking about storing humans for long days ahead. They're like squirrels with nuts and you're the nut. Still feeling that Conduit solidarity or them treating me like canned food change your mind. I saved you, didn't I? Next time stay out of the fight. I can't talk. Sorry, man. I'm grateful you getting me out of that cage and all, but I ain't never gonna stop trying to help. Yeah, so there's a UGC mission. Oh, I should have rated it. It's worth noting that this is the last game that you play as Cole in, and also the last Infamous game on PS3. So now I'm gonna have to find my PS4 and move on to that part of the video. Now I've jumped over to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro in particular, actually. So this part should be in 4K. And we're in Infamous Second Son. This was the first game in the series released on PlayStation 4, and is the first game in the series where you don't play as Cole. It took the game in a handful of different directions, but anyway, the reason why we're here is because of this icon, I think, if I remember right. So this is something called Infamous Paper Trail, which was actually... Oh, Sub Pop. Yeah, so this game takes place in Seattle, and like it's you know the first time the series has been in a real city, and there's references to Seattle all over the place, such as Sub Pop, which is record label. But anyway, so we need to get over to that icon, and Infamous Paper Trail was a ARG that actually happened in this game, kind of. It wasn't really super like real life related, but long story short, as you went through these missions, yeah, see there's the paper birds. As you went through these missions, you would actually go to a website and solve puzzles on your computer on the website, and that would like lead you to the other stuff. So, Paper Trail. Follow the trail of bloody origami doves to unlock free bonus missions and discover the full story behind the DUP. Go to infamouspapertrail.com for more information. So, this website does not actually work anymore, but I'm going to see if I can go on the Wayback Machine and maybe show you guys some of the pages of it. However, you can still play through the full Paper Trail according to what I've read online, even without the website anymore. They modified it so you don't have to use the website anymore, although apparently it kind of leaves questions about, like, you know, how Delson solves stuff without actually, like, being able to solve it. But, and then there is another conduit right there, and her power is paper. So I'm going to play through probably this whole first mission here to show you guys. The Paper Trail missions unlock as you play through the main story, so this is the only one that I've unlocked right now, because even though I've played through all of Second Son previously, not on this console, so I don't have the save progress. And it takes quite a while to unlock this Paper Trail mission. You have to play through, I want to say it might be like about a third of the game. It took me like 2 or 3 hours to get to this point. Good God, where did she go? So something kind of interesting to note about these Paper Trail missions is that they actually didn't all come out at once, if I remember right. They came out like over time. And I remember people really like strongly assumed that the reward for finishing Paper Trail was going to be paper abilities. It made sense. Almost every other conduit, I think actually every other conduit that Delson meets throughout the game, he ends up getting their powers at some point. But no, and if I remember right, they actually like announced near the end of Paper Trail that was not going to be the big reward because they didn't want to like super disappoint people. But yeah, it seems, it makes it seem like you would get the paper powers, but no, sure enough, you end up not getting them, which kind of sucks because like I don't know, it was what everybody was expecting, but that's just not what happened. So that's the mission done with. Crime scene photo, photos, wallet, and origami dove added to your paper trail profile. Log in at infamouspapertrail.com to examine them before continuing. But since there is no examining, you can just continue from there. So yeah, see, track down Killian Zalov's phone signal. There would have been on the original version of Paper Trail when it worked, you would have gone to the website and kind of sifted through that stuff and then like figured out who that guy was and everything. But anyway, I think that kind of demonstrates the point here. So I can probably go ahead and end that part. And I think that's pretty much it for Infamous Second Son. The only other thing I have in my notes here is that this game actually uses the touch control of the PS4 controller a little bit. There's a couple things, well, okay, it's not a little bit. There's a couple things in the game that you can actually only do with touch controls. Namely, there's these like big vehicle things that you have to like destroy, and Delson has to pull up on part of them and then smash them, and you have to use the touch controls on the controller to do that. And actually you cannot, there's a point where you would get soft locked in the story if you weren't able to do that really early on, because it's required to do that pretty early on in the game. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Infamous Second Son, the experimental portion. I know that there's probably a lot more to say about Paper Trail, but I just wanted to kind of show it. And the fact that the website doesn't work anymore kind of takes away from part of the fun of it. But it was really cool at the time to have an ARG like that made you get onto your computer and stuff. And if I remember right, in the midst of some of the missions, you would have to go on and like look at stuff on your computer and solve it, and then like go back to the game and that kind of thing. But yeah, and I remember also there was a way you could kind of like glitch it to, or not glitch it, but like cheese it a little bit, because if somebody had the link to a future part of the paper trail, sometimes you could click on that and then it would like trick the paper trail into thinking you solved one of the puzzles. So anyway though, now on to the last game, Infamous First Light. So I went to the Internet Archive to look at the Infamous Paper Trail website, and I totally forgot that you actually had to log in, because you had to hook up, if I remember, you had to hook up your account here with your account on PlayStation, so that way it could track what stuff you did on the website to then show up in the game. So there's a password wall here, and it means that it's not really like easy to see any pages past that. I did try to see if looking at the URLs section, because this will list like all of the various URLs, but like I clicked on a few of these and there's just way too many of these to try to figure any of it out really, and a lot of them are just like this one, console.jpg. So this is probably just going to be a picture that was like an asset within one of the mini games on the website, so it doesn't really show that much. So if you are curious to see, yeah, so this just shows the icon from the game. So if you are curious to see like the actual how this all worked, then I would say that it's probably best if you look up like a tutorial from back around then on YouTube, because there's probably plenty of those. Something interesting that also I wanted to mention though, oh, I don't need Windows backup again. I was on there the whole time. Something interesting to take note of on here is that I don't think it says it on here anywhere, but whatever company either made or was like part of the Infamous Paper Trail thing, they actually ended up going on to do they did another like ARG thing that actually had to do with the Joker from Batman. I remember eventually getting a email
from like the Joker one time, and it's on like an old email address that like I could go looking for. It'd be a pain to look out those. It was for something to do with Batman. They were doing this Joker ARG, and I was like, what is this? And long story short, I ended up figuring out somehow that it was like the same company. They apparently retained everybody's emails and then tried to also get you to sign up for that Joker thing. That Joker thing actually did look pretty well made, but I just wasn't interested in it, especially because it was on like an old email that I barely ever check. So I'm starting this part of the video on the PlayStation Store again, like I did with Festival of Blood, because this is also a downloadable game. Now, unlike Festival of Blood, this did actually get a physical release on disc in some places. I remember seeing copies from Japan of this game that came out on disc, but here in the US, I don't think it ever came out on a disc. So, anyway, let's jump into the game. But that does kind of make it a little bit... This is a little bit similar to Festival of Blood in quite a few ways, actually, because it is also like a spin-off / like standalone DLC for a different Infamous game. And Fetch has like different but like limited but also some new powers compared to Delsin. But the interesting thing that I wanted to talk about in relation to Infamous First Light is that this game actually has a sort of like tournament mode. Actually, you can kind of see it, they're battle arenas. So you can do these like arenas where you have to try to get the highest score, pretty much. That's the main objective. They do pop up in the story, but you're going to want to, and as you can see, we're playing as Fetch. And similar to Festival of Blood, like it's a smaller map, takes place in a, if I could look at the map, so it only allows you onto the first island of the game, if I remember right, and it takes place at like a different time, and there's not DUP, if I remember right, in this game. The main enemies are like gangsters and drug dealers and cops. But let's see here. Yeah, but this is just kind of what it looks like. It's Fetch and it's still Seattle. So, and this one actually didn't take me that long to get into the arena. Alongside the arena being an interesting aspect of this, something that I find even more interesting is that you can actually play as Delsin in the arena. Even though Delsin is not playable at any other point in this game, you can still play as him in the arenas, which I think is really interesting. So I'll play a little bit as Fetch, just to show you guys that, and then I'll play a little bit as Delsin. Also because, if I remember it, he says something kind of funny when you first do it. But so for these ones, you have to go and rescue hostages, and it's all like digital, because the story behind this is pretty much that Fetch is locked away in Curding K, which is like the prison for conduits, and they're trying to train them to pretty much like be killers. And there we go, rescued. Multiplier. So yeah, you just want to try and like for any of the arena missions, you want to try to do whatever the goal is for like as long as possible. I think this one might actually, since it's not survival, this one might end after you rescue 5 hostages, but get the highest score. And there's leaderboards. I don't know if the leaderboards still work. You might only be able to see the leaderboards after you are done, but fun fact, at one point I was actually #1 in the world for one of these missions, because this game came out at noon in the time zone that I lived in on the day it came out, and it was for whatever reason, it was either like a weekend or I had school off or whatever it was, and I ended up being, I was playing through it, and since the game had just came out, the leaderboards for a bunch of these were brand new, and so I ended up, as like I played through the game, I realized that there was only a few other people on the leaderboards, and I was able to beat those scores, and so I was #1 in the world at this at I think specifically this arena, for probably like, I don't know, however long, and then of course the leaderboards got filled up with people who are far better than me at the game. Yeah, so that shows the Fetch arena. It's pretty self-explanatory. So let's jump over to Delsin. So interestingly, this game also doesn't have karma, similar to Festival of Blood didn't have karma. So when you play as Delsin, Fetch is the same regardless, because she doesn't have karma meter. But Delsin, you can play as good Delsin or evil Delsin. So I'll play as good Delsin just because good
Like, I've played through the games as a hero for the most part, in general. And I could have sworn, like, when you started this up, or sometimes when you started up, Delsin actually says something about, like, wait, when did they capture me? Because canonically, Delsin does not ever get captured by the DUP. But all of his powers are here, which I think is interesting. And also means that they must have designed the arena a little bit around not only Fetch, but also Delsin. At least I think all of his powers are here. I think he has Neon, because he has Neon, Video, and Concrete. And I think that all of those are here, but I might be totally wrong about that, actually. Because I'm just noticing that he doesn't seem to be able to drain any Neon. Where is... Oh, wait, no. Okay, so there's Neon. So drained Neon, and I don't know if there's a video thing around, but I'll have to see if I can drain video from somewhere. I don't think he has, like, in the normal game he does have Concrete, but I don't think he has Concrete in this arena mode. I don't see any video sources, though. I only see Neon. I don't even really see Smoke. But it is cool that Delsin is in this game, especially because he is not at all otherwise in the game. I don't even think he shows up in the campaign at all. Honestly, it really does... Oh, here's the leaderboard. So yeah, now I am 69,907th on the leaderboard. But yeah, that pretty much shows everything that I wanted to show, all of the various experimental and interesting features of the Infamous games. I think it's especially fascinating that a lot of these features only showed up in like one Infamous game. So, like how the UGC creator only showed up in Infamous 2 and Infamous Festival of Blood. This arena only showed up in Infamous First Light. The paper trail only showed up in Infamous Second Son. Infamous 1 doesn't really have anything that only shows up in it, but the gigawatt power does not show up in any of Cole's Infamous games because he gets the amp, so he doesn't melee with his hands anymore. But yeah, honestly, this video has kind of made me want to replay through the first 3 Infamous games, and I've been thinking about maybe like because I don't know, it feels like it would be interesting to do like evil first game and then carry over that karma and then be a hero in the second game, because there's almost like hints in the second game, almost like that might be the canonical way to play. But anyway, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to cover, so I hope you guys found some of this stuff interesting. I will see you in other videos in the future, and bye-bye.